It's another thriller of a Thursday, and we like to welcome you aboard the AM show. It's always worth waking up for. If you've woken up this morning to join us, well, a very big thank you and good morning. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and it's a pleasure hosting you. Now, this morning, we're going to delve into, again, the topical matters germane to our national life. But let's start with the news review, where, in fact, we're going to be hosting Selon Branty, a policy analyst and a vice president with Imani Africa. He joins us this morning as we delve into the papers and beyond. Now, those germane matters we're discussing this morning, we'll start from the Black Stars, our national football male team. They disappointed in AFCON 2021, and Parliament is set to probe the Black Stars' performance at AFCON 2021. We'll be getting into the details of that matter. We'll also stay in Parliament as we discourse on minority MPs still opposing vehemently the e-levy. How will it pan out on Tuesday when this matter is resuscitated, if you like? But there's another thorny issue that has come to the fore. You remember a few days ago, while I was doing the news review with Oliver Baka-Vomao, there was talk about this issue. Now, those in Central Kofi Akpafu, Lolobi, and Likpe Sal for short, they could not vote in election 2020. Fix the Country took on the Electoral Commission and her deputies, asking them to be impeached. But now there's a pushback from them, and they are saying for certain reasons that process cannot continue. They've taken the matter to court and have included the Attorney General and the Chief Justice himself. Now, joining us to discuss this plot of issues, our guests, Roxanne Nelson Dafia-Mekpo, Member of Parliament for South Dine. We'll also have representation from the MPP side, and we'll also hear from the NLC as far as the UTAG situation is concerned. The NLC has upped the ante. They are actually suing UTAG. You know, at the end of this week, 21 days would have elapsed. And what that means statutorily is that the schools would have to shut down. So what is the way forward? We'll also bring you updates on the Apiate explosion, the situation there, and how things are panning out for those who actually were affected. All of that on the AM show this morning. You don't want to miss a beat. Just stay with us from now till 9 o'clock. Right now, let's take a breather and we'll bring you the news shortly. Well, let's settle now for the news and the controversy about whether there was a police escort with the vehicle that caused the explosion at Apiate in the western region may not end anytime soon, as the chief of BIPO, Nana Atta Brembo, has challenged anyone who has evidence that there was a police escort to show up to be questioned. Speaking during a familiarization visit by the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Samuel Abujinapo, the chief, whose jurisdiction includes Apiate, said it was not true there was a police escort accompanying the vehicle carrying the explosives. Now, the Ghana Police Service insists the vehicle had police protection, with documents suggesting that that was the case. This is Chief of BIPO, Nana Atta Brembo, challenging the claim.
We are touched by your decision to pay a working visit to Apiate today. We are also grateful for the support we continue to receive from the Municipal Chief Executive of this area. We are told that a committee has been set up to coordinate the receipt of relief items. We plead that government supports this cause by making more funds available. There are, however, reports that there was a police escort accompanying the vehicle carrying the explosives before it detonated. That report is false. The accident occurred right here at Apiate, and I dare anyone with a different account to provide evidence to that effect.
Well, in his response, the Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Abujinapo urged the residents not to allow anyone to incite them against government. He says the government has more plans to continue with the enormous support it has provided so far and will ensure the reconstruction of their community.
First of all, to get a sense of the situation on the ground for purposes of the reconstruction of this community. And as you can see, we've had a very fruitful tour and engagement with the community members. I must report very quickly that it's very refreshing and encouraging that the State Housing Company seems to have done some considerable work already, including the assembling of inventory of the structures we are dealing with. Essentially, President Akufo-Addo is committed that government will take the necessary steps to reconstruct the Apieti community. And as you know, yesterday on its instructions, I launched the Apieti Support Fund, which is to raise the requisite resources to support the community members, as well as be used for the reconstruction of this community. And therefore, we are very excited to be here, and we've done some very good work. The minister who is responsible for housing has had a good sense of what is at stake. And from here, we will put in place the necessary framework and mechanism to move forward with the steps towards the reconstruction of this community. What is important, what I have to emphasize, is that government is extremely committed to unleash the necessary responses to this disaster, because this is a government that is determined to rebuild this community, support the community members, and make sure that the situation here is returned to normal.
Now, staying on that matter, at a press briefing, Lands and Natural Resources Minister Samuel Abu-Jinapor said investigations into the matter will be fair and comprehensive.
I had a meeting with the chamber, and the chamber brought this matter to my attention. They've since written to my office. It's a very important factor that we have to consider in the decisions we take moving forward. We need to assemble the basic facts before we can take a decision as to whether to lift the ban or not, and the Minerals Commission is engaged in that work. The investigation should be fair, to be comprehensive, and it will be anchored on integrity. Let's wait for the outcome of the investigations.
Let's move away briefly. Now, contractors have resumed construction work on the Esikuma Junction, Hohoi section of the Eastern Corridor Road in the Volta region, following a long break. Greenhouse Construction Limited and Messrs First Sky Limited are rigorously working on the deteriorating stretch to make traveling convenient for motorists. The Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Letcher, as part of his tour of the region, inspected the progress of work. There is more in the following report.
The Have-Hohoi stretch of the Eastern Corridor Road was awarded to Greenhouse Construction Limited and was expected to be delivered in February 2022. However, construction works are not even 50% completed as of January 2022. The Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Letcher's disappointment was visible as he inspected the progress of work on the stretch. The Chinese contractor cited delayed payment from the central government as the cause of delay.
They stopped. Now he is saying that he's been paid. So they have come. After a few months, we don't see them again. Then they wait again, they are paid again. So my question is that now that you've been paid, are you going to continue doing the job until it's completed? That's what you are promising. That's what you are promising.
I must continue. No pay, no pay. I must continue to do it. Fast this one. I fast finish this road.
So what promise can you give the people of Volta region NOT that by this time we should expect to be traveling on a more travel road? Because I came from Hohoi, and it's not comfortable at all.
Maybe August.
August 2022. August 2022.
So that's 7 months from now.
Yes.
Okay.
So when we pay you some money, you also bring some dollar from China to add to it. You complete it, then we pay you.
Yes.
Messiah's First Sky Limited is busily working on the 39 kilometers Esikuma Junction private stretch, which was re-awarded in August 2021. Over 30% of work has been done, with the construction firm hoping to deliver before the September 2023 schedule. The Chief Executive Officer of First Sky Construction Limited, Oliver Akwatechi, explained the scope of work.
From a section where the asphalt currently ends to the extreme end, which is the Peve Township is where we are currently working to bring it up to the asphalt layer. What we have here, we did some remedial works so that it will be more trouble, because we realized that there were a lot of accidents due to the potholes that has been developed. So we patched those potholes so that we make it more trouble. We'll bring that other section to the asphalt layer. Then we mill this face from kilometer 0 to kilometer 28, and then reproduce a fresh asphalt and relay it.
They're going to finish one side of one side, shift the traffic onto that one, and then before the second one is done. So we are happy. Our first guy is doing a good job, and we pray that they continue to do so.
Said Kwame Asari, Joy News.
Now, moving from that stretch of road, the National Association of Institutional Suppliers is demanding a 40% upward adjustment of food supplies to senior high schools in the country. National Vice Chairman Dr. George Ejei-Hene notes prices of supplied items have remained the same for the past 7 years. He is worried about the adverse effect on their businesses. Love FM's Kwesi Deborah has more in this report.
Dr. George Ejei-Hene is worried about the adverse impact on their businesses. He revealed calls to the Education Ministry have yielded no results. He also bemoaned the non-payment of arrears since July. He revealed suppliers still have stock of exercise books, house jerseys and school clothes since the government took supplies of these items in the advent of the free SHS. Dr. Ejei-Hene spoke at the maiden annual national conference of the association in Kumasi.
What exactly we want the government to do is that since 2016, that the current prices that we are operating with was implemented, there hasn't been any adjustment. So we are run at a loss because the inputs, all the materials that we are using, equipment, have all gone up. And there is a need for us to have some adjustment. So we are commending that the government adjusts the current price by at least 40%, so that at least we can operate effectively, so that at least we can run our businesses successfully.
Some of the affected persons spoke to Joy News.
Yeah, the situation has affected me. As in, the production has been cut off, and at the same time, the books that we normally do, we do customize them, and now it has been like they are doing it in a way. It is just one-sided books that they are doing. It's no more customized. So since they started that, they are using, let's say, national tender. We've tendered 4 times. We couldn't win any contract. So based on that, we are out of business. If it were to be unlike before, you tender on the schools, so it's between you and the headmaster. But now it's not like that. They've generalized the whole thing. So you tender, after that 4 times, you tender, you not get a deal. You not get a job, and they will not tell you why you didn't even get a job. And the normal circumstances, they're supposed to write to us. Due to this and that, that's why you didn't get the contract. That is the law. But Ghana, anything that will favor whoever is in charge, that's what they do. So we don't even get the feedback why you couldn't win the contract. So maybe you improve upon that the next time.
Well, thank you for joining us for the news review. We delve into the major matters that the newspapers and beyond are capturing this morning. Later on, we'll be joined by Selom Brantier, policy analyst and Vice President of Imani Africa. But thank you for your company. Now let's get right into it. The Daily Graphic newspaper now. Support e-levy for job creation. Finance Minister urges youth. That's the very first story on the top of the paper. Support e-levy for job creation. Finance Minister urges youth. The story is on page 16. Have you seen that animation, though, where it talks about Ghanaians being in full support of the e-levy? If you've seen it and the animation and all of that, interesting. And I like the way that maybe it's being pushed forth to get some traction, to get some following. But let's not paint the picture that all of Ghanaians, because even as a media entity, a lot of the people we've spoken to, most recently from Kumasi, weren't very, optimistic about the e-levy. So let's paint the right picture. I feel this is an appeal to the powers that be in political circles. We want to push this. Government needs it to ensure that our finances do not collapse. But let's not, what should we do? Pigs don't fly in the air. Let's not build castles in the air. Let's paint the right picture, gauge properly now that we want to consult, and the right things ought to be done so that if there's a buy-in from the people at whatever percentage, then we can move on with it. But to tickle ourselves and laugh and think that, everything is all right, I feel genuinely, this is my candid opinion, that it's in the wrong direction. But here's the story. The finance minister is urging the youth to embrace the electronic levy as it is linked to the You Start initiative aimed at promoting youth entrepreneurship and job creation. And I quote him here. The e-levy is an essential tool that will ensure that we have the revenue to invest in entrepreneurship, youth empowerment, and road infrastructure and pay our debts, he said. Mr. Ofori-Atta further said that the e-levy would prevent the government from borrowing from the money market, which would make it compete with the private sector for funds, otherwise known as crowding out the private sector. No one wants that. But the question is, with an e-levy that some people have described as a nuisance tax, a double taxation, if you like, with the telcos getting their bit and now government asking for more, 1.75%. The tricky part is that we've heard some of those communicators or those who speak for government say that we're going to stick at 1.75%, willy-nilly. Let's see how it pans out in Parliament, shall we? Anyway, that's it for that story. Legal aid to beef up staff. That story is on page 16 as well. Also interesting. And the Legal Aid Commission has started a process to recruit more lawyers and administrative workers to beef up its staff to provide an improved legal aid system in the country. Over the years, only about half of the people who apply for the gratis or free legal service offered by the LAC are able to access it due to inadequate staffing at the Commission. It requires about 100 lawyers in the medium term to augment its operational staff to handle cases brought to it, a major challenge to the work of the Legal Aid Commission. Let's quickly turn our attention to other stories. And the banner headline of the Daily Graphic newspaper this morning, return to lecture theatres. And this one, definitely, I would discourse on with Selom Brantier when he joins us. Government is appealing to lecturers as negotiations continue. So you know what it is. We've come to the point where, especially for UTAG members, at the close of the week, we would have exhausted 21 days. What that means is the schools were shut down. Schools shut down, students likely have to find their way out, and the entire bit about managing the situation, going, coming, how it affects teaching and learning. I've seen word from one of the student unions as well, sort of begging almost the teachers to return to post, but also calling on government or the employer to pander to some of the concerns of the teacher unions. We'll see how all of this pans out. But in this story, the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission has appealed to members of the University Teachers Association of Ghana to go back to the lecture halls while the leadership returns to the negotiation table. The commission said its call was premised on the fact that UTAG had to be seen to be respecting the lawful authority of the mediator, the National Labour Commission, even if it had any misgivings about it. So those are details of the story. You can check out more details on page 3. But let me say a very good morning to Selom Brantier. We've succeeded in waking you up very early for another morning. Good morning, Selom.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well. It's a Thursday morning, and here we are again. So let me quickly run these by you. The finance minister is calling on us to support e-levy, the e-levy for job creation. And here are his reasons. He's talking about the You Start, which is a youth entrepreneurship program. He's talking about the fact that it's going to help raise revenue to invest in entrepreneurship, youth empowerment, and also pay our debts as well as construct roads. And I'm sure you've also heard some communicators of this administration saying that we're going to stick to 1.75%, like it or not. Your take, now that they have said in Parliament that we want to engage the people more. We need to engage more before we come back with the e-levy. Do you feel this tone and the engagement is going as it ought to, I should say?
The tone is wrong. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Even according to some polls, I think Multimedia itself did a poll somewhere earlier in the week or last week. I can't remember exactly when.
Right.
It was very clear that a huge number of people were opposed to the levy. And the fact that nothing has changed.
I think, if memory serves,
nothing has changed from the initial proposal. Right. Yeah. If nothing substantive has changed from the initial proposal, then we are back to square one, or we are even behind square one, because if you, the government, or if you, the finance minister, is asking us to engage and you are unwilling to compromise in any form or manner, in spite of the hugely negative feedback that the government has gotten since the proposal, since this was mooted, then I believe that even the parliamentarians who are in favor are actually going against the will of their own constituents. And it is very unfortunate that the government is still planning to bulldoze this way, bully everybody else into accepting something that obviously requires much more consultation, requires much more understanding and openness. As for the flowery, promises or outcomes that this is supposed to have, it is neither here nor there, because we are looking at a situation where already the economic outlook by several other parameters or several other variables has been seen to be bleak. And therefore, you do not expect people to jump into this with welcome arms at all. And I don't know what the objectives are for the town hall meetings, etc., but they do not shed any further, they would not shed any further light than the light that has been shed already on why they want to go through this e-levy process. So I believe that it's an exercise in futility, if you ask me, and I believe that it will really not make any difference, and I think it's just a waste of taxpayers' money.
A waste of taxpayers' money. Just a quick bit there. I think the poll you were speaking of had about 90% saying they would rather not pay an e-levy, and about 10%, if memory serves. And again, to clarify, I don't believe it was... I've heard other communicators of this administration talk about the fact that the 1.75 is what will remain. I've just not heard the finance minister himself say that. I don't recall that. So just a bit of correction, because I feel you mentioned something to that effect. So it's not as though we're being unfair to anybody. There's also the bit about returning to lecture theatres. And this strike or this industrial action by the teachers seems to be going full throttle into the next phase. So the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, as the Daily Graphic reports, has appealed to members of UTAG to go back to the lecture halls. That is GTEC appealing to UTAG to go back to the lecture halls. And this is why. They are saying that UTAG has to be seen respecting the lawful authority of the mediator, which is the National Labour Commission. And quoting Professor Salifu, he says, as intellectuals, we cannot be seen to be acting with impunity. That is what he has been saying in this respect. But we have got to the point where at the end of the week, 21 days would have arrived and the schools would, per regulation, have to shut down. Is this going to be enough to get UTAG back on track in terms of teaching?
You see, this is a very dicey situation, whichever way you want to look at it. We have a situation where, you know, the lecturers deserve more than they are getting. In any society as advanced as ours, we really are not paying much due to lecturers, considering the fact that they play such a crucial role in the nation's human resource development and advancement going forward. But then again, we also are in a situation where we have tampered with our educational calendar so much, especially in the aftermath of the COVID-19 crisis and all of that, and the disruption it has put on the academic calendar. Right now, I really believe that if I were a lecturer, I would really want to have the kids back in school while we found a more mature way to negotiate some of these things. But then the issue also is that this is a matter of livelihood, and probably it's about who has the higher bargaining chips at the moment, and that is how negotiations play out. So the lecturers have every right to also stand their ground and threaten to close the schools, because if you are not well motivated in the job you are supposed to do, you do not deliver efficiently. And this is a time when they have been overloaded with a lot more responsibilities than your typical lecturer would have probably 10, 15 years ago, when the population of students in the universities were about half or a third of what is there now. So it is really a very dicey issue, but
right.
I believe that reason should prevail, and the lecturers should at least get back to school to also reduce the anxiety of parents and even the students themselves at this point. We've had enough disruptions in the academic calendar already. And having these ones to come in, it disrupts everything, because there will be a backlog of students that will be also waiting. And this backlog increases year on year. And so I hope that the Labour Commission also compromises a bit to also ensure that these lecturers come back, because you have other people in other sectors enjoying massive perks for their remuneration, whilst lecturers, who are rather some of the most important people key to the future of this country, are left to be wallowing in semi-poverty. And the political posturing hasn't helped, because they make it look like the lecturers are getting so much.
Right.
But they could get far better offers abroad, but they have decided to stay here and help Mother Ghana. So I believe that there should be some compromise before the weekend. It will be better for all of us.
Right. Let's quickly look at the story on page 20, one that has engulfed the nation in grief in recent times, the Apiate situation. Now, the chiefs are demanding evidence, Selom, of police escort. And it gets even more interesting. The traditional leaders of Apiate are demanding evidence from the police administration that the police escorted the truck carrying explosives from Maxim, Ghana, that caused the disaster in the community last week. That's the whole point. We're talking about the chief of BIPO, Nana Atta Brembi II, who is asking government and the team of investigators to ignore the assertion that there was a police escort for the truck. So those in the community say there was no escort. But the police, on the other hand, has also come out with documentation supposedly to suggest that there was an escort. So quite a bit of an interesting development. Now, in terms of providing proof, the chief of BIPO said the claim by the police administration that the police provided an escort did not reflect the truth and could rather send wrong signals. He says the police administration should tell us whether the police escort was before or after the truck, and where the escort was when there was a call for people to evacuate. They should produce the said policemen to tell us where they were, whether they saw the accident before them, and what they did from the time the fire under the truck heated up until well over 25 minutes before the truck exploded. So you see where the chiefs are also coming from. So the police service on one hand, the chiefs on the other. What do you make of this?
This is, had it not been for the fact that this was a disaster, you would say it's a comedy of errors. So it's not a comedy of errors, but something that I would say has cascaded a whole bunch of different negligence cascading into one huge disaster. If you look at the situation very critically, it is quite clear that a lot of laid down procedures were not followed. A lot of laid down structures for handling the explosives were not followed. Looking at the footage, for example, the pre-crash footage, the pre-explosion footage, it is quite clear that there was no policeman in sight. And if there really was an escort on escorting the vehicle, you would have at least seen one or two policemen shouting or using their cars to try and, or using their motorbikes or whatever mode of transport they were using to escort that explosive vehicle. You'd have seen them trying to maybe use it to block off the road or something. But it was very odd and strange that nothing of that sort was there, and people were walking freely towards the vehicle. And the chiefs have made the right call. We need a very clear, independent assessment of every single event that led to this disaster, so that we do not repeat this ever again anywhere. Because had it been a more populated area, for example, had it been out in the outskirts of Takwa or Bogoso, it would not only have raised buildings, that it would have destroyed much more infrastructure, and it would have killed many more people. I think that we should not take any part of this lightly, and there should not be any cover-up by any of the security services, be it the police, be it any of the mining companies, whatever. We all must contribute and make sure.
Do you suspect, Salome? Do you suspect that there is a cover-up somewhere, and where would you suspect that there is this cover-up?
I wouldn't want to preempt any investigative reports and say there's a cover-up. But it was quite clear that there was an absence of security agencies. And like you said, that truck was burning for a long while before it exploded. And you would have expected, even when you watch movies and things like that, when these things happen, you would have expected that maybe even if there was only one person, he would have even radioed for some kind of backup or whatever it is to come and assist him. And you know, these days, police have all these motorbikes that they have been using for visibility, etc. You'd have expected that there would have been a few of them to come and cordon off the area, because if there was an escort, I don't believe it would have just been only one policeman. There would have been at least a couple of them. Or if it was a car, you'd have expected about 3 or 4 of them in the car. We saw nothing like that, and there was no report of a damaged police car close to the scene or anything like that. So then it makes the situation quite murky, and even to the extent that some of the narratives around what caused the accident have now been thrown into doubt. It makes the whole thing very, very fishy. What I believe needs to happen is that there should be no obstruction to the investigation. There should be no obstruction, there should be no cover-ups. And we demand very honest answers for what happened on that day. Disasters like this should not be the opportunity for people to protect themselves or try and cover things up. We should know the root cause of this, and we should attack every single aspect of negligence that caused this, because the next one that could come would even have far more devastating consequences.
You know, the other side of the picture, I've heard from some of those in the mining community. I don't know whether it is the Minerals Commission. It just escapes me. But this gentleman who is head of that institution was also talking about the fact that once Maxim, the entity that supposedly was, delivering the explosives, is out of business, or they are not working. They were shut down for a while.
Yes.
It's costing them, in terms of revenue to be generated, I think, to government, about $1.75 million daily. So there are implications from both ends. Yes, maybe you're trying to do the right thing, but how do you go about doing the right thing? How quickly do you go about doing the right thing? Because on the other end, you'd also be losing very important, crucial revenue. So many things to look at. But let's take a quick look at sports, Salome. After the poor showing of the Black Stars, who had to take a cold shower, very early one out of AFCON 2021. Here's the latest. Coach Milovan Rajevac has been sacked, and the GFA is to name a new coach soon. So the Executive Council of the FA, after considering the 3 reports and engagements with the key stakeholders, decided to end its relationship with Rajevac. Again, the FA's decision yesterday was in line with a directive by the Minister for Youth and Sports, Mr. Mustafa Yusuf, who at an emergency meeting with the GFA at the Jubilee House last Friday said that the football governing body dispense with the services of the head coach. So that is where we find ourselves. We have to get an interim manager now to hold the fort as we go head-to-head with the Super Eagles of Nigeria in that World Cup qualifier. But do you think in this country, is it self-inflicted? Because guess what? When CK Akono, we agreed that CK had his own problems. But when you look at the performance of Rajevac this second tenure, it leaves a lot to be desired. Again, we all knew that the man Rajevac coming this time had a very poor record. Any surprises in there, and is this self-inflicted?
Absolutely self-inflicted. I mean, you are looking at a situation where you have an executive committee that really didn't have Ghana in mind when they were selecting the coach or making plans for this. You have a situation where, for the first time in a very, very long time, as far as I can remember, players are not seeing or prioritizing playing for the Black Stars as important. And I believe it was not because of the fact that they are not patriotic, but it is because of the fact that the rot that was in GFA, for which it was reconstituted and this new GFA has come, it seems to have, we just papered over the cracks. And it's quite evident because we are not able to attract the best talent out there to play for us. And if you could see very clearly that there were so many different layered agendas in selecting Coach Ryback. The players, a lot of the older players are coming out and hinting about so many different things being the reasons why, as well as even our talent abroad. That, I mean, for a coach for a national team coach, one of the easiest things to do, or one of the most important things to do, is to present yourself in such a way that you are attractive as a manager for fellow Ghanaians or fellow talented Ghanaians to want to play under you or to want to unite under you and carry the flag. To that extent, he has even failed woefully. He has failed woefully, and the GFA's management committee has failed woefully in that regard. This shows that they are not doing anything in the interest of most Ghanaian players, and that devil-may-care attitude has reached a point where people also realize they have other options. So it's very clear that the sports administration aspect of running the Black Stars as a national team has failed in uniting people for purpose and uniting people for the objective of qualifying for the AFCON or the World Cup. And I think the future is bleak, and until we really do a massive shake-up of these two institutions, I doubt if we will really make any progress, even at the World Cup, should we even beat Nigeria and qualify.
Okay, let's do the Ghanaian Times newspaper quickly. At the NIA office, mad rush for Ghana card as SIM card re-registration deadline approaches. Let me find out from you. Have you registered yet? Your SIM card re-registration, have you done it yet?
No.
Not yet. What is keeping you, Salim?
You know, I've been one of those who have been protesting the way the whole thing is being done. And I still believe the right thing has not been done in terms of the approach, the methodology, the people who are supposed to run this and how they're supposed to run it. They have just successfully created a lot of mass confusion and panic amongst people, overloading registration centers, not being creative and innovative about how the whole approach should have been done. And the consequences are what we have been seeing of late. And we believe that there are far better ways to have done this in deploying the right kind of technology to do this. We believe that this two-step approach where you had to do something online and then have to go physically to a center could have been avoided completely if they had decided to fully integrate the NIA infrastructure with whatever registration process they wanted to do. None of that has been done. There has only been minor compromises here and there. And you see, in this country, like everything else, we pretend that we have done stakeholder approaches. We have talked to the right people. And then you realize that all they do is have a 20-minute meeting to announce to you that this is what they are going to do. And then they just go ahead and do it. Very poor project planning is killing this country. And it is becoming evident in everything we do, whether it is even in investigations, whether it is even in doing things like sports, or whether it is doing national programs like this identification, re-registration and all of that. We are seeing it everywhere, and we are really, frankly, getting tired of it because as we move on as a nation, we also are experiencing better services elsewhere. And we know we can do better. We know we have the capabilities to do better, the technology to do better, and all of that. You can't always be forcing people into queues, especially in the aftermath of a very devastating pandemic that has disrupted everybody's life. It is high time. This is not 1983. This is the 21st century, for crying out loud. We shouldn't be queuing everywhere for everything.
Right.
It shows bad planning and it shows very inefficient use of resources. And I think that this should be a cautionary tale. This should be the last time we should ever be running things where we should have people queuing and spending unnecessary amounts of hours just sitting there. You see, in Accra and other urban areas, it is even easier. But when people have to move from rural areas with very limited resources, access to transport and all of that, and have to do these things, it really has a huge consequence or a burden on them, economically, physically, and socially. We are not thinking about the older people in society. We are not thinking about the less healthy people in society. We are not thinking about the disabled when we do some of these things. And it is really generally a very, very bad way to govern and run a nation.
Right. Let's look at this other story as we go back to the e-levy briefly. There's also EC boss, 2 deputies sue Attorney General CJ and another. We're talking Article 146 of the Constitution, 146(8) to be specific. And we know on February 10, we had Oliver Barker-Vormawor announce on Facebook the bit about he, together with 45 other petitioners, pushing for the EC boss and her deputies, the 2 of them, to be removed on the back of what had happened in SAL. Now, the EC boss has, the EC has filed a suit at the Supreme Court to restrain this Chief Justice, together with the Attorney General and Oliver Barker-Vormawor of Fix the Country in this respect. They don't want this matter to go forward. And there are other details, of course, to the story. But that entire development, in maybe a minute, what do you make of it? There are pointers when it comes to how such situations should be dealt with to ensure fairness to, for example, a judge, or maybe in this case, a chairperson and her deputies. And even such sessions being held in camera, they contest that some of what is being spoken of is already out there, which shouldn't be the case. And so they are saying that this should be quashed. Your take, Selim?
Absolutely frivolous. That's my take. Absolutely frivolous.
The EC is being frivolous?
Completely, absolutely frivolous and mischievous, and is just trying to buy time to derail the wheels of justice. We are in a time where the EC has deliberately neglected a whole constituency through their own negligence, the chance to have a representation in Parliament. That in itself is a travesty of governance. And the fact that they still are very unrelenting in their approach to try and remediate the problem, and they are now trying to resort to legal gymnastics and legal gimmicks. Every event that goes to court already has some part or some aspect of the event manifested in public. If that was the case, if there was a murder, for example, and people witnessed the murder and talked about it, then you could also go and file a suit in the court that the judge should not even talk about the murder. I mean, the judge should not sit on the case because the murder has been talked about in public. Nobody does that. I mean, it is just gymnastics. It is just them trying to exploit a few procedures here and there to stall the fact that the SAL or the Santrofi Akpafu.
So Santrofi, Akpafu, Likpe and Lolobi.
Yes, region has been neglected all this while. And for everybody who is a champion of democracy in this country, this is a big, very big blight on us and on our conscience. And anything that is being done to derail that is possibly, in this, I'll use a very strong word, disgraceful for our democracy as far as we have matured it to be in this 31 or 32 years of our Fourth Republic.
Okay, I have one final issue, so we wrap this conversation, the news review. But before that, the BNFT pay 30% oil revenue to court registrar. Judge orders ENI and Vital. You remember their issue. Data Protection Commission to crack down on defaulting organizations. GRA sets 80.3 billion Ghana cedi revenue target for 2022. And then Goldfields plans up to 500 million US dollar investment in Damang mine. But the story I want to wrap with, Selim, it's from the Daily Guide newspaper. Apart from Nana Addo, the president, calling for peace in Boku, the banner headline, E-levy found in NDC 2020 manifesto. And according to this story, it's turning out that the opposition NDC, in their 2020 manifesto, promised to introduce some form of electronic transaction, which their opponent, the MPP administration, is currently pursuing and getting stiff resistance from the NDC. A bit of poor writing as of the first page. But let's go to page 3. The e-levy policy proposal, which the NDC did not name at the time, was captured on page 99 on point 8.7 under financial inclusion and electronic payments, or fintech, in their 2020 People's Manifesto. So basically, this paper, the Daily Guide, is suggesting that the NDC is being hypocritical, that it had a semblance of something that would have looked like an electronic transaction levy. And so the NDC maybe has no locus with all this hue and cry about the e-levy. What do you think? Final take in about 40 seconds.
A drowning man will clutch at straws. It is very clear that this proposal is very unpopular. And therefore, anything that you can do to justify your position is what you do. But like the proverb says, you even clutch at straws if you are drowning, knowing that it will sink you. They have to really sit down and have a second look at this. This whole e-levy thing is not only going to make the government unpopular, seriously, but it's also going to destroy the whole fintech digital finance space. And if that is what they want to do for just 7 billion cedis of revenue and make people lose jobs and destroy whole new industries that are coming up in terms of the digital space, and in a service sector that is contributing more than 40% to Ghana's GDP at this moment, well, they should go ahead. Maybe they are better experts and maybe they know what they are doing. But for most Ghanaians and for most of us who are in this space in one way or the other, we can see that this is not the right way to go. But if they are intent on doing that, in spite of against everybody's wishes, as Ghanaians for whom they believe they have come out to serve, then they should go ahead because they think they have the power to. But then they should also note that when the time comes for reckoning, they will be found wanting.
When the time comes for reckoning, Celebrity, always refreshing. It's great to have you. And thank you for allowing us to wake you up this early to join the conversation. Have a wonderful day, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. And that is how we actually bring this to a close, the news review for this morning, and we've got all the details from the papers. But there's a lot more coming your way when we get into today's big stories. We're going to be dissecting some of those that we've already touched on here. So do stay with us, and when we return after sports, we'll be getting into those topical matters, the e-levy and more in Parliament. We'll be right back. Right, so we're kicking off our big stories this morning with sports. We're going to be talking about sports, and from there we'll talk about the e-levy. We'll talk about the situation between the NLC and UTAG, and also bring you the latest on Apiate. But for now, sports. And I'm just looking at the list here, those countries that have qualified for the next stage of the AFCON: Burkina Faso, Tunisia, Senegal, Equatorial Guinea, surprise in there. We have Gambia, Cameroon, Egypt, and Morocco. All of these countries qualifying, but Ghana is conspicuously absent. The question is, why? What happened? AFCON 2021. Well, we'll be finding out from some members of parliament, but joining me in the studio now, Muftau Nabila Abdullahi, who has this smile. Is it mischief or what is it that you're wearing?
You said the Black Stars is conspicuously missing, and I'm wondering why they are conspicuously missing.
2000 and
why?
What? We had 2006, 2010. Yes. All of these periods, we've been pretty consistent. I mean, this time Group E, we are at the bottom of the log with 1 point, losing to the Comoros.
Between 2008 and 2017, Ghana had its best ever run in the history of the African Cup of Nations.
In a period of 9 years.
In a period of 9 years. More than any other country. The Black Stars they were in the semi-final consistently. But since 2019, the fortunes of the national team has been dropping. I'll not just say.
And that is 2014 after the World Cup in Brazil?
No, after the World Cup, we actually made it to the final of the AFCON.
Yes, indeed.
We made it to the semi-final of the next edition, 2017, which was in Gabon.
So it's not been pretty bad.
It's not been pretty bad, but since 2018, when we failed to qualify for the FIFA World Cup, that Black Stars has since struggled. 2019, round of 16, 2022, we exited at a group stage. The question is, can we qualify for that of Ivory Coast 2023? It's a big, big question that we need to answer. I know the Ghana FA.
Wow, even for the AFCON, it's now dicey whether we can even qualify. Because look, you can't take any country for granted anymore. Look at what Equatorial Guinea is doing.
See what they did to us.
The Comoros. How they look at what they are doing in
and how they performed against even the host nation Cameroon with 10 men. They played 83 minutes of that game with 10 men. Lost 2-1 to the host nation of that tournament. It clearly tells you they are doing something that we are not doing. When this Equatorial Guinea wanted to join FIFA, guess who helped them to join FIFA? The former GFA president.
Wow. Kwesi
Nyantakyi helped Equatorial Guinea to join FIFA. When this same country came to Ghana and had a meeting with the previous government then, they said, help us develop our football. This was just 2015.
Right.
And within that same 2015, when they were in Ghana requesting that Ghana should help them develop their football, Ghana had played them in their home country and drew 2-2, came to Kumasi and beat them 2-0. I remember that game, those games so well. The second leg, it was Jordan Ayew and Mubarak Wakaso who scored for Ghana. And that was the qualification, the preliminary qualification to the next stage of the FIFA World Cup campaign, which was for 2018. This is a country that has, between 2015 to 2021, 2022, developed so well that they can now beat Ghana.
Right.
3-2. Deny Ghana a ticket to qualify. Ghana actually needed a draw to qualify to the next phase of that tournament.
I mean, the Comoros, for example, proceeded in the AFCON 2021 at our expense.
Yes.
By beating us. I mean, all we had to do, I think we just needed a draw with them. And we couldn't even manage that. So it tells you about how the fall from grace has been for the Black Stars. But I want us to look at this carefully. It's been a poor trajectory over the last maybe 3-4 years. You should put it that way. We've not fared well. And even in terms of the women's football, where our women normally would, you see that the Black Queens, the Black Princesses have not done so well. And recently, when we had that team, Hazaka's ladies also go. Unfortunately, they lost to, was it Sundowns? Mamelodi Sundowns,
but they had,
in the final.
They had a great year. They won 5 trophies.
Amazing, but that would have been the icing.
The icing on the cake.
It appears every step of the way, we seem to go this far and no farther. We're not qualifying for the World Cup. We're struggling in the AFCON. And when I say we're not qualifying for the World Cup, I'm talking about previous events, not this one. I mean, we all hope that we do
qualify.
Because
for 2006 we were there, 2010 we were there, 2014 we were there, 2018 we failed to qualify.
So let's look at the current state of the GFA. They were invited to the Jubilee House. The Minister for Youth and Sports, Yusuf, interacted with them. Government is clearly dissatisfied, very unhappy, and the whole of Ghana together with government. So I think they have our full support. But Muftau, Milovan, I agree, he is underwhelming.
Okay.
But letting him go at this point, good or bad move? And what's this about his being offered $270,000 and initially rejecting it? Like, what was he after?
He can't even reject. If you give him $270,000 and he refuses and then he decides to go to FIFA, he can't win it.
Right.
Because in the spirit of the game, what is usually said, and FIFA standard contracts, what usually happens is that the coach should not lose what he would have gained if he was still engaged.
Right.
So FIFA would rather advise that you pay the residual value of the contract.
Right.
So he's left with 9 months. The GFA will have to pay him $270,000. The contract between him and the Ghana Football Association, at no point did the GFA indicate that if we fire you, we are going to give you a compensation.
Right.
It was rather that if you decide to resign, you're going to pay us $200,000. He read the contract and duly signed it. So the GFA going to tell the Minister of Youth and Sports that they'll pay him a compensation of $400,000 is neither here nor there. Yesterday, I was having a conversation with people who are very familiar with some of these contracts, and they said that the ministry should not pay that money. I've had interactions with people within the ministry who have also told me that they cannot even pay that kind of money. Why would they pay him that kind of money for leading Ghana's or supervising Ghana's worst ever AFCON performance?
What is informing even this sum of money that they are giving them? Because look, we must really look at value for money. In Guinea, Kanu Doumbouya said, you know what, so I take back my words. I was a bit harsh initially when you lost, but you know, it's acceptable. But the only thing is, we gave you enough money for the entire tournament, all the way to the finals. You didn't get to the finals, so you know what? The money for the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and the finals. Hey, Kawokudi.
It has always been same standard practice. Even in
So why all this? We seem to be in a quagmire, and we're still throwing money around.
No,
explain that to me.
No, we're not throwing money about. Anytime there's a budget prepared for a tournament, say we are going to spend $4 million for a tournament, and Ghana exits at the group stage, the rest of the money will return to the state. That's the
is there? Let me ask you something. On the back of some of the conversations we had yesterday, you remember the Australian incident and some events, sporting events we've had in this country with no proper closure. When we conclude such tournaments, you are the sporting man. Do we have a proper breakdown of? So we supposedly budgeted, was it $6.1 million for this tournament? Am I correct?
It was about $5 million.
About $5 million, and even the prize money for the tournament is about $5 million. But let's get into
that.
No, hold on. Let's even forget about that. So we budgeted. When we come back like we have now, do we have a breakdown? You know what? This is what the technical team and this is what the team, whatever bonuses, this is what went into it. This is what we budgeted for the full haul. This is how far we went. This is how much we had spent. And this is what is left. And this is what is left is going to the sports ministry or is going into this kitty or that kitty, because I know we have a broader 20-something million, $25 million plan for our teams. So do we have that?
Sometimes it happens, other times it doesn't. The interesting thing is that I remember the 2019 African Cup of Nations, when we came back from that tournament, the then Minister of Youth and Sports, Isaac Isiama, was on the floor of Parliament, and he gave us an idea about how much they spend for accommodation, for feeding and all that. But there were other interesting things that he said that he goofed, where he said that FIFA and CAF organized excursions for fans that went to the tournament and all that, and gave some kind of figures that never made sense, because I'm wondering how FIFA and CAF will organize excursions for supporters who have gone there to watch a tournament. But he did give us an idea about how much was spent at every step all the way to Ghana's exit from the round of 16 of that tournament. So oftentimes we have that, other times we don't. And this is where Parliament needs to come in. Parliament can demand that you give us a breakdown of how much was spent on every single thing we bought. I have an idea about how much we spent in the 2019 African Cup of Nations, even to the extent that the Ghanaian embassy in Egypt is chasing the Ministry of Youth and Sports, demanding over $300,000 that they use that money to get accommodation for supporters. If I tell you how they arrived at that figure, you'll be really shocked.
Tell us briefly.
It's quite critical, because people who are supposed to be working in the interest of the state are working and demanding at least 10-15% commission. That's how sometimes the figures often shoot up. Imagine the embassy in Egypt, which is supposed to work in the interest of the country, ensure that we have accommodation for supporters who are there to watch football, saying that they need like 10% commission for administrative expenses and other stuff. They were quite surprising, some of the things I heard, and some of the figures I had the pleasure of going through. They were quite surprising to go through such things. But you asked an earlier question that I did not answer before we moved. You asked about the sacking of Milo, whether it is the right thing or the wrong thing to do. Sometimes in football, there isn't a right or wrong time to sack a coach. The coaches are hired to be fired. CK Akuno was fired on September 13. Ghana had a game to be played within the next 2 months, which was in November. Indeed, it was even October. He was fired in September. Milo was confirmed on September 24 by the Ghana Football Association. Then, as early as 11th October, Milo played his first game as head coach of the Black Stars. So, if the GFA decides to part company with him now, whoever is coming in have got about a month to prepare for the next round of the World Cup qualifiers against Nigeria. And the people they are looking at have a clear idea about the team, because they've been around the team for a while. You are looking at someone like Otto Addo, who was the assistant coach to Milovan Rivard, until they had a bust up that Otto Addo decided not to come and join the technical team for the African Cup of Nations, because Milovan Rivard had told him that he is the head coach, he is in charge, he decides who should play and who should not play, and Otto Addo decided not to come back. At that point, you would realize that if Otto Addo has even stayed on, and the GFA decides that we are moving on from Milovan Rivard, Otto Addo is already in there. He has a clear picture. They're also looking at someone like Ibrahim Tanko. He's been with the team for between 2017 and 2019. So he also has a clear picture. Even till 2020, he has a clear picture of the Black Stars. Anytime he's given the opportunity to lead the Black Stars, he knows the players that he can invite to help the national cause. At this point, what Joy Sports have picked up is that the GFA wants to go to Germany to engage Otto Addo. They are not sure Otto Addo will accept the job in the interim basis because of his engagement with Dortmund. So they want to have an extensive conversation with him. If Otto does not get it and decides to settle on Ibrahim Tanko, he's a man who is walking into a space he already knows. So whether Milovan Rival has been sacked today, he will be sacked tomorrow, he's sacked next month, coaches are hired to be fired. And when you're fired and the next person steps in, he changes the atmosphere of the dressing room. Because at that point, the very moment you walk into that dressing room, players begin to feel uncomfortable because those who felt that they own positions in the team now know that there's a different man on the technical bench who's also got different eyes and will decide who plays based on the person's understanding of football. So at this point, I think that the GFA made the right decision to part company with Milovan Rival. If you look at the Black Stars' performance at the African Cup of Nations, you are definitely going to put it at the doorsteps of the coach because he's a man fixated with something. When you speak to people who have worked with him, what he says is that if I'm not losing, why would I make changes? If a coach have got this mentality, then he's always settling for draws. That's why sometimes when he scores one goal, he starts to sit back and people come at him and end up scoring. We had opportunities against Morocco to win, against Gabon to win, against Comoros. Had it not been for that red card, there isn't the possibility that Ghana could have won. But what did he do? He decided that because the team was not conceding, there was no need to make changes. Forgetting that sometimes when you make changes, you re-energize the whole crop of the team to attack further and score goals.
So, Mr. It is clear that we got a lot of things wrong, and maybe parting ways with Milovan Rajevac is the best thing for us at this juncture.
He told the management committee, some members of the management committee and the technical team something, that the team needs to go through what he described as mental surgery. And that mental surgery, he says that most of the players feel that in the presence of others, they can't perform. Because there's the belief that there's spiritual things happening within the team and all that. So the team should go superstition. Right. So the team should go through what he describes as mental surgery.
I've heard, is it Kudus or someone like that say that, you know,
the Kudus story is quite an interesting one because there are claims
just briefly, very briefly.
Yeah, there are claims that he was sacrificed for the game against South Africa and all that. That have raised so many questions. This is 2022. We cannot continue to talk about superstition in our national team.
It goes beyond
the previous success of the team. Why did we not win?
Moving forward, now the technical team has basically been disbanded. Yes. Moving forward, what are we going to be doing between now and the World Cup qualifier with Nigeria? What are the sort of steps? I know Parliament is probing the matter as well. I'll get into it with
Parliament have always probed matters, even when the team got to the semi-final stage of the tournament, went to the final. Why did we not win? I am yet to see a concrete report put together by Parliament that says that these are our findings. This is why we couldn't win the tournament. Until such a time they are able to put together a concrete document spelling out problems that have led to Ghana's failures at the African Cup of Nations, trust me, these exercises will always continue to be exercises in futility.
Muftau, thank you very much for joining us for this belt of the conversation. And you've painted quite a picture. We'll segue into what Parliament will be doing. And let me quickly introduce our guest this morning. We have the Member of Parliament for South Dai, Roxton Nelson Dafiamekpo. I'm sure you can see his handsome face. It's buga buga when we meet. It's always fireworks when we meet. But today you seem to be in a bit of a sober.
We are calm.
You are calm, eh? Yes. Ayo. So we'll get into the conversation with him. We'll also speak to the Member of Parliament for Inshiayeso, Dr. Stephen Amwa. He will join the conversation later on.
You know, the sea is always calm after the storm.
The sea is always calm after the storm. So which one is coming first? Has the storm come already?
The storm came already.
Okay.
That was the fisticuffs.
That was the fisticuffs. That was the storm.
So our leader says now everything is calm.
Okay. Sorry. Let's start from the sporting, and even as we engage Dr. Stephen Amwa as well. And when we're joined by Dr. Stephen Amwa, of course, I'll do the necessary acknowledgement. How does all of it rub off on you? The performance of the Black Stars in AFCON 2021 and the Ministry for Youth and Sports having to intervene, Rajevac being sacked, and all of that. How does that rub off on you?
Agbe, thank you, and good morning to my constituents and your viewers in Peki, Kwali, Pebetongo. You know, the name of the Black Stars was actually adopted from a football team in Peki.
Really?
Yes. And I intend
the name Black Stars was adopted from a football team
that had that name in Peki.
How long ago was this? Obviously,
this
before
was in the 50s.
Wow.
Nkrumah had gone there to visit his friend, lawyer, I forgot his name. He died quite recently. It was Nkrumah's friend. You know, and when he got to Peki, Peki had Peki Black Stars.
Peki Black Stars?
Yes, it was a team in Avetili and Apeviope.
Wow.
So he adopted the name. So I intend to make a statement regarding this matter shortly. So
a bit of historical antecedents there.
So Sauda and Peki, we are.
What do you back this historical bit
Yes,
with?
yes.
What is your backing? I mean, do you have any evidence?
The evidence is very clear. There are historical accounts, the name of the football club, it's a known fact in Peki. But it appears that we haven't made the effort to amplify it enough. You know, and that Black Stars, the name, Nkrumah adopted it from the Peki Black Stars at the time. It was a football club. And so anytime, I recall the lawyer, a very famous lawyer. So anytime he visited, they played community games. So Nkrumah visited him. And the name was very fascinating, Peki Black Stars. So he took it and adopted it for the national team.
Okay. So those are
my
historical.
people. That's by the by. The point I'm making is that every community in this country has a very strong attachment to soccer.
Right.
And football appears to arguably the only social event that cements us together. In fact, marriage.
Matter the politics
in
and
fact,
all, when it comes to football.
In fact, marriages are saved when the Black Stars do well.
Marriages are saved when the Black Stars do well.
Marriages collapse when Black Stars don't do well. So
wow.
I tell you no lie. As a practitioner, I've done a couple of cases where one of the spouses in court as a result of football-related matters. The man got angry, left home, and never returned because Black Stars lost. I think that time was Hitler's also World Cup or something. It hasn't returned. It was one of the grounds, abandonment.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Of course, in law.
Yes, the man abandoned his matrimonial home because of football.
This is interesting.
Yes, they never go back, and the other spouse, the woman obviously had to go to court. And
of course, after 7 years.
In our petition, we had to plead that fact. And she led evidence regarding it. So, football is such an important social cementing event. And yesterday, even in Parliament, when the ranking member on the sports committee, the Honorable Uyumi, when he made the statement and the contribution from members, it tells you something.
It was feisty in Parliament, as far as that was concerned.
People were sober.
People were sober.
I mean, in fact, I had the opportunity to contribute. I mentioned the fact that, look, time was when we had Milo games. That was unneffing talent for us. We no longer have Milo games. I recall in Mauli School, we could travel to Kumasi and go and play Opokuwari. As regional champions, they too were Ashanti regional champions. That was how.
I mean, the code system and the entire
and I'll get there. And the code system
back then,
is
when
dead.
in the 90s, we were winning global trophies.
When we were growing up in Lagos town here, we had great FACOs. My brother and his friend Kamaru, they were in charge of FACOs. And FACOs or never Bedi, a lot of people didn't know.
Oh, wow.
Yes, great FACOs. Yes, before he went to, I think, Tamale
Tamale United.
Yeah, no, he went to secondary school first. They were in Alajo here. He was playing great FACOs in Lagos town. Those are you walk to Indafa Park, even Alajo Park, and play the games. You know, so, but we have destroyed our coach system. And now, when it's time to pick players for the Black Stars, we are forced to go and pick players based in Europe. I made the point yesterday that Europe now they are in winter. We are in winter. We experience very humid climate here. You go and pick players who are playing, whose season are run into winter, to come and play in a very humid temperature. They won't do well. These are scientific facts. They won't do well.
So we should have. What are you proposing? We should have used more of local.
Exactly. Meanwhile, we are destroying the local league. The quality is dwindling. Why? Because now academies are built purposely to produce talents meant for European clubs. We are not feeding our local leagues with our talent.
It's all about the money.
It's all about the money now. The time was when players are called up for the Black Stars. They call it the national team call-up. You could see as many as 50-something players. Those, the goalkeeping division, the defense, midfield, then the striking. So many players. Then they did what was called the justifier. So you go and justify, at the end of the day, a 25-man team will be selected. We don't do that anymore. We just select the players from their clubs in Europe and bring them together. 3 days time, they say we should go and play a friendly with Algeria. What do you expect? So the conditioning, you saw how Comoros played. Even though they've left, they were very, very athletic.
And they are debutants.
Yes. You saw how Equatorial Guinea is playing. You know, so in addition to having the flair, the skill and all that, you also need to have the stamina.
Okay. You've spoken about the coach system. And I just want you to hold it there for a bit, as we also get the take of Dr. Stephen Amoah, Member of Parliament for Ishiayesu. Doc, a very good morning to you. We will reconnect with Dr. Amoah.
Yeah, so
get into it. I just wanted his take as well about how we ended it.
So yesterday there was different shades of opinion on the matter. But like it happened before. You recall when we went to Egypt, and the same ranking member who did this yesterday also raised the issue of expenditure. You recall the then Minister for Sports, the Siama, mentioned a lot of amount of money they spent on. So we need to have a holistic review of our structure of the national teams, right from the under-17 up to the senior national team. How they are managed, how they are funded, and the coaching system. The coaching, do we have a combination of a foreign coach and a local-based coach?
Right.
Do we have that as a nation?
Local or foreign and all of that.
It's a discussion.
I'll get your take on that.
Yes.
I'll ask you about how you feel about Rajevac and his exiting, and whether moving forward, even for the qualifier to the World Cup, we should do a local coach. But let me welcome back Dr. Stephen Amoah. A very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you so much for joining the conversation. Of course, Member of Parliament for Ishiayesu constituency.
It's a pleasure having me on your prestigious platform.
Right. We're talking right before we get into the conversation on the e-levy, which is mainly why you are here. I know you're also passionate about the Black Stars, and we're just getting a bit of a history lesson as your colleague Roxanne Nelson Dafiamepo was telling us about the Picky Black Stars, from which the Ghana Black Stars got their name in the Nkrumah period. But what do you make of how the fortunes of the Black Stars have dwindled, especially in AFCON 2021, and now the exit of coach Milovan Rajevac? From where you sit, as Parliament probes this matter, what do you want to see?
Okay, thank you very much, and my regards to our listeners this very morning.
Right.
In the first place, I have also...
Hello, Doc, are you still there? Can you hear me? Do we have Dr. Stephen Amoah? Okay. We'll try to get Doc back on the line. But you were talking about, so local coach, foreign coach.
It's a conversation we need to have. Agbepo, we are building Look, and this is the evidence. You know, at some time before Christmas, this matter came up. We asked government how many astroturfs we were building in the various communities, just to improve quality and produce more players. The more astroturfs we are rather building, ironically, the more our quality as a football nation is dwindling. And it's a worry for me. When we play on the Sakura parks, we're rather doing well. We're robust, we're hardy, we're focused, we're getting results, we're making names in tournaments. Now we go to tournaments and we exit. So our league no longer attracts the mass supporters to stadiums, unlike before. So what is happening? Whilst we are putting so much money in terms of building infrastructure, the expectant results in terms of producing quality and improving the game is rather in decline.
Okay, so one of your colleague MPs, Patrick Yaw-Boaba, says Ghana is actually no longer a football nation.
Thank you.
That is what he said. But let's get back to Dr. Amoah. Doc,
well, we may still be a football nation, but others have caught up with us. The standard we used to have.
And the standards, have we increased ours or bettered ours?
We remain stagnant.
Dr. Amoah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, sir.
Right, please proceed with your thinking. And sorry about that initially.
That's okay.
So you can go ahead with the point you were making.
I was saying that myself, I just set up a football club named Kumasi FC.
Kumasi FC?
FC.
Wow.
We are going to launch it probably next month. Everything is imported into the country now. Our cones, reflectors, jerseys, footballs, everything. It means that I am a stakeholder now.
Right.
I think Honorable Patrick Boame's statement, I agree with him in a way, because we are probably dwelling on past glories. Ghana is no longer what it used to be when it comes to football. And the reason is simple. I think there is an immediate cause, or there are immediate causes that we need to analyze. The immediate cause, yes, it is, but it doesn't really have to play any major or profound role. The issue is that human beings are just like natural resources. We get depleted, we get exhausted, we have functional lives. So any serious system will have to make sure that anytime these resources are getting depleted, strategic measures are put in place to replenish or replace and to stay competitive and to have competitive edge over your other opponent. It is extremely important. And this is what, as a nation, probably we failed to do. And we all saw this coming for so many years now. Anytime we get the opportunity to be in any international tournament, we start doing mathematics and statistics. Oh, if we win this, then we do permutations, binomial theories and stuff like that. If we're able to draw, if Burkina Faso draws with maybe Morocco, if this is what we'll be doing, it's like we're living on luck. The fact of the matter is that as a country, we need to be honest with ourselves and say that we could not put measures in place to ensure that we stay competitive in this whole industry. That's the first thing. Two.
If you say as a nation we couldn't do the right things, of course not all 31 million of us as Ghanaians can do this. So where exactly should we place the blame? Is it at the doorstep? Is it at the doorstep of the sports ministry, the GFA, the technical teams? I mean, where exactly do we place the blame?
Boss, I think as a nation, I understand your very prudent question, wise question, but if I talk about a nation, I think not literal terms. You need to understand what I mean. The relevant stakeholder individuals and groups, even including you, the media, the commentary some of you run, your comment.
That affected the team?
Boss, I'm not trying to apportion blame to one or two, but I want us as a nation to look at this nationalistically. That's my opinion anyway.
Right.
If I'm wrong, fine. The next thing I want to talk about is the fact that we should be able to sit down and identify all the independent variables When I say independent variables, the whole football issue is not dependent variable. Independent variables are all the factors that can impact this whole football thing negatively or positively, and see where we went wrong with each of them along the critical activity or the entire value chain, and build from the basics, from the scratch, and also begin to understand that why at a point we're a football nation, what were we doing right and what are we not doing right today? Or dynamics have changed. If the dynamics have changed, what new paradigm shift are we introducing as a nation? This is what we have to do. Because if you saw our players on the pitch, it is extremely interesting. I was so shocked. And even some of the old players, they are old. But I think the way we made them exit the whole international football, on behalf of this country, to me was not properly planned.
Players like whom? Are you talking of the Asamoahs? Are you talking about maybe Suleiman Tari and the like?
Sometimes they may, some of the developed countries, what they do is that at least they pick 2-3 that will be around, not even necessarily playing, 90 minutes or even playing at all. But they impact the junior. You remember Roger Miller?
Right.
Roger Miller was about 40 years.
40 plus.
People have seen it. He has scoring abilities. Apart from that, I'm sure he was impacting them. So I think as a country, we need to accept the fact that when it comes to this area, we haven't done well over the years. What can we do to rebuild this whole team from scratch? And we need to look at some of the national activities. Those that were having inter-schools. And we had players like, they were from, first they joined Kotoko, somewhere from Ahmadiyya Secondary School, say to jump from Kumasi, so I could name them. I'm sure Greater Accra, they had, yes. A lot of these players were playing for the secondary schools.
Right.
And those days, Opokuware, Oti, Ahmadiyya, Oti, so Kumaka, they will meet almost every year and come and see display. This was anything we are having coach teams. I was playing for a team called Rangers. And I was just very young, small boy. I was just a small boy. And I'm sure those systems were in place to let us, and somebody said something good this morning, that now even our young players they are no longer fighting to play for Kotoko and half. Unlike Affect, who were playing football, before I get onto the pitch, they will call me Tony Ebua. They will call this person Don Mote. They will call this person Abedi Pele. This is what was happening. All these things are getting missing. So I beg all of you, let us all understand the fact that the needed stakeholder groups and individuals should come on board. This one, it shouldn't be a party or a system or one person. As a nation, let us accept that we have failed, not only the coach alone. If you go to war and you're using Tiabofre and your opponents are now using AK-47 and co, you cannot blame the commander or the captain. So as a nation, we need to rebuild this whole football team or whatever from the scratch. And we should also be careful the kind of information, some piece of information that we divulge to the world. Because some of the decisions of even officiating bodies, if you're very smart, you realize that they were very stern with Ghana. They were very stern with Ghana. Every country has issues. And so everything that as a country other people should behave like they are so perfect, they are angels. Even in the developed Italy, what did happen in Italy? They all do a lot of football, whether they are good or not.
Doc, the point has been made. From both of you are reflecting the fact that the coach system or the youth systems that brought up the likes of Audu Isaka way back are no longer there. And we're bleeding as a result in terms of our footballing capacity or abilities. But as this probe, I just want us to move past this bit of the conversation. As this probe, this parliamentary probe is set to take place, what are your expectations in less than a minute if you can? And I'll come to you, Roxanne, as well, for saying less than a minute, and then we'll talk about the e-levy.
I'm expecting three things. One, they should be able to do very independent, holistic, without any individual group interest, investigation or probe, and help Ghana to identify the core independent variable, the causes. Two, I'm expecting them to come out with recommendations that will change our situation and bring solutions. The last one is what I'm praying they do. Because Ghana here, we have a history. They will do all these nice things. They will bring all the recommendations. The last phase of it is implementation. Practicalizing what they will bring out. I am begging them. We shouldn't go and spend resources in terms of time, in terms of finances or financial, or in terms of material, energies, and then they come out with solutions, and the solution will be shelved, and they will become museum items.
Right.
We should be able to implement whatever solution they bring out and make sure that we do impact assessment, impact analysis year after year, and see that what we plan to do, we are on course. It is very important.
Okay. Hold it right there for me, Doc, just for about a minute as Roxanne also comes through with a stake. What should what are your expectations, Roxanne, in terms of this parliamentary probe?
Now, it should be bipartisan. It should be focusing on the long term. But more importantly, it should be focusing on the immediate term review. What am I saying? What I'm saying is that we have a World Cup qualifier playoff with Nigeria.
So in the immediate term?
Yes. In the immediate term, that should be our focus. We should be able to win that game and qualify.
Right.
Then when we qualify for Doha, then we can take steps to put our house in order before we get to Doha. Right. Because qualifying for the World Cup perhaps is the only thing that will assuage the concerns.
Just a quick one before I go back to Dr. Amoah. So do you think in this instance, should we opt for a local coach or maybe someone like Otuado who is coming from Germany?
I agree.
Or should we go for another coach?
For me, it's immaterial. A coach that will take us to the World Cup, that will qualify to the World Cup is what I want. We can go back to CK.
Right.
After all, we can go back to CK. After all, we went back for Ryback.
Right.
We need somebody.
And we went back for Kwesi Appiah.
Exactly. Who, when he comes back, he can have the spirit of the team back.
Okay, point well made. Hold it right there. Sticker, right before Dr. Stephen Amoah, my apologies to you. We all call you that.
Oh, no, that sticker is okay. That sticker, I love it. You can call me any name.
That was a slip. Thank you for being so charitable. I said we were going to the E-Levy, but the final point. So do you think to qualify us to Qatar, would you opt for a local coach or a foreign one?
I agree with my brother Roxton. Anything that will help us qualify and go and put up very splendid performance that will lift the image and the reputation of our country, I'm in for it. If it's a local coach and he can do it, why not? If he's a foreign coach and he can do it, why not? But what I don't agree is that a foreign coach will take maybe just a figure, $40,000 a month, and a local coach will take 10,000. I mean, why are we doing this to ourselves?
Right. So the parity should be there.
Or is what?
Right. Very, very important point you've made. I mean, if we're going to use them, then we might as well respect them and treat them same. Thank you both so much for your sharing your thoughts on this matter. But let's get into something else that has become very topical: the E-Levy. And we've heard so many things. This morning I was engaging Selon Brantier, who feels, this whole thing is dead on arrival. It is inimical to the ordinary Ghanaian, and he feels the entrenched position that some communicators in government have adopted. I've not heard this from the finance minister himself, but I've heard some of your communicators, Dr. Amoah, say that we are going to have an E-Levy and it is going to be 1.75%, whichever way we like it. Roxanne is suggesting that you yourself have been saying that. And on Tuesday, we have to go back to this matter. You've talked about consultation, reaching out to the Ghanaian masses. Do you feel in adopting this entrenched position that we will have an E-Levy, whether you like it or not, Ghana for, and it's going to be 1.75%? Do you feel that feeds well into this entire consultative process? Dr. Amoah, are you with me? Okay, we appear to have lost Dr. Stephen Amoah briefly. We'll reconnect with him. I'm sure he heard that question. I'll just reframe when he comes. But coming to you, Roxanne. This has been quite a journey, hasn't it? From the last quarter of last year into now, it's all been E-Levy, 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 E-Levy. I had your compatriot or your counterpart, the Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Honorable Mutala, give us this position of the NDC yesterday, and he made it categorical that you are against any form of an e-levy. We've also been told, like we read today in the Daily Graphic and other papers, that you're thinking of YouStart, a youth entrepreneurship program. You're thinking of road construction. You're thinking of other infrastructure. You're thinking of shoring up the economy. We need the e-levy. That is what Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has been saying. It's been suggested that you in the minority, you are just being mischievous, hypocritical, and you just want to break down government business. The question is why? Why are you doing that? Roxanne.
Thank you very much. It's not correct that the aim of the minority is to break down government business. It's not correct that the aim of the minority in this matter.
So Dr. Amoah, I am taking a submission from Roxanne. I'll be with you in some 2 minutes so that you can also react to what he says. Right.
No problem.
It's incorrect that the aim of the minority is to obstruct government business. We've been asking government that within the past 5 years, total government revenue, in terms of tax, total tax revenue from 2017 to 2021 is in the region of 220 billion.
Right.
In all, 220 billion. That's total tax revenue. And that's equivalent to about $45 billion. If we consider borrowings of government within the same period, it comes to about 220 billion or more. That too translates into about $45 billion.
Right.
So, plus or minus, government within the past 5 years has had in excess of $90 billion to work with, equivalent of about 60 billion pounds in this economy. We are asking government to account for that. Whilst we do that, government says its revenue is shrinking, revenue sources are shrinking. And so they want to expand revenue collection or they want to foray into other areas where they can generate more revenue.
You as a minority, you've been proposing some areas to them that they can use apart from the e-levy.
Yes. For instance, and my ranking made the point, and it was very, very instructive point, that if you take the over 40 million registered SIM holders in this country, 441,000 are merchant SIMs. Merchant.
Right.
And that supposes that they are doing business for profit.
Right.
So even for starters, identify the merchant SIM holders and tax their profit for operating mainly on e-transaction or for engaging in e-process for profit. Because if we put all of us together, all the 40 million.
But you would admit that 441,000 compared to about 40 million.
Hold on.
441,000.
No,
that's just about what
because when they
million?
do that, there's a distortion. The general population is about 31 million. And your record is showing that over 40-something million are SIM holders. So it means that there are persons
multiple
who hold.
holders.
Exactly.
Right.
So when you rely on such data to do computerization, you have distorted conclusions or outcomes. So Ato is saying that for starters, you target the merchant SIM holders because they are profiting, they are doing the business for profit. Target the profit they are getting from their telcos for starters and see how it goes. But when you lump all of us together, and for instance, when you say that if I can transfer 100 cedis or more in a day, it means I'm in a position of wealth. That is also misleading because you government yourself, the executive, you are paying poor people every quarter about 300 Ghana. Because you think that they are poor, so you are gifting the state money to them. So if you think that the basic minimum amount that somebody needs to survive is 100 cedis per month,
then how come you're turning around to tax on people?
You see, but let's get into the tax, the levy.
Can you do that in a minute?
Yes.
So I get to Dr.
Yes. What is the position of the minority? We are saying that the tax will distort the economy. Why? Because the tax is neither an indirect tax or a direct tax. And the imposition also infringes the principles of taxation.
Right.
Because you are assuming, or you have encouraged by a deliberate policy that we should engage in e-process. So as a business person, I want to deal with Agbeku. Akaku, sorry. My apologies. You are a dealer in electronic gadgets. So I want to buy a TV for my community. How much? 3,000 Ghana. I send you the money from Peki. So you put the TV on a vehicle and send it to me. I don't have to travel to Accra. Government says that if I do that, government is actually not taxing the fees that will be charged me by the telcos, but on the volume. So the higher the volume, the more money government makes. You think that as a business person, next time I'll transfer such amount of money.
So it's inimical to business.
Yes, it is.
Hold it right there.
It is.
Samuel, you've been patient enough. You've listened to everything that your colleague Roxanne has been saying. My first bit to you, why are you bent on an e-levy at 1.75%? Why?
Okay, thank you very much. My brother, I want the whole world listening to us today and my brother Roxanne to also honorable to understand the fact that in the first place, what do we use proceeds from tax for?
What do we use what for?
Proceeds from tax. What do we use it for? We use it for to execute government policies and programs, to derive utility for the same people that we are taxing. Is that what it means? It is very important. And we do that to create some sort of uniformity and some level playing field in society among different segments along our social stratification. That is why we try to create a condition or a situation, an environment for a poor child to access education. We need to understand that. And that's the prudent management of any socio-economic framework of society. We should understand that. Two, before I come to your point, you should understand the fact that taxes all over the world impact disposable income negatively all over the world. So nobody is happy with doing that. Between 2014 and 2016, go and check. And that my brother's regime, and this regime, about 26 tax components were either increased or imposed on Ghanaians. This same NPP government under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, in fact, 2017, either reduced or entirely extracted 16 tax components. Remember the financial services tax, the KIO tax, the condom tax, medicines imported but not produced in Ghana, and real estate. You remember all of them. So managing tax is a calibration model. But looking at the position and the circumstances a country is going through or confronted with a challenge, then you decide as a good government to increase taxes to make sure that you manage and consolidate your fiscal space. We are a country that, among all other countries on the globe, about 22 months of impaired productivity in this country as a result of COVID. When you say this, propaganda-wise, they say everything is COVID. Because they come from a background of communist inferior practice. They think they want to pull people along and want people to feel they like them. However, their Social Democratic Party, tell me any pro-poor policy to show you love Ghanaians and save the poor from being at the bottom of our social ladder that they implemented. So it is not about propaganda. We have been going through a lot as a country.
Right. So Doc, can we narrow it down? Can we narrow it down and just address?
Can he address the matter? I cannot
let me do this.
Address the matter you are talking about. You are rather
hold on, Roxanne.
Deal with the issue.
Roxanne, let me moderate this.
Let's speak about the merits of this system of taxation.
Roxanne, thank you. So Doc, I want you to hit the nail on the head.
But that's what I'm doing.
1.75%. And do we need to do this? We are talking about less than 7 billion Ghana cedis. Are you telling me that out of the 100.5 billion Ghana cedis that we've budgeted, for the nations working in terms of the economy, if we let go of these 7 billion, the economy will go bust?
We need the money.
I have spoken for 2 minutes. He spent 2 minutes talking about propaganda.
So wrap on that and tell us about 1.75%.
Use your time well to address the issue and let me rebut.
Please, can you talk to Roxanne to stop this thing?
Please.
If he doesn't want me to, I'll just cut the call, then he goes ahead.
Roxanne will no longer interrupt. Go ahead.
Their intimidation and the violent nature, they should stop those things.
You are on TV saying that you want the healing.
I beg your pardon. He is on phone. You are in the studio. Allow him to make his point. Please go ahead, Doc.
What I'm saying is that in the first place, the country has gone through impaired productivity, making government to spend without getting even the needed revenue. Our revenue shortfall was over 11 billion. Government has been paying even workers who do not go to work.
And who created that? Who created that?
Let me answer my question, please.
Right.
If you won't let me, I think the reason I'm building facts to you to understand. You say you will not. So where do I speak?
No, you were talking about 11 billion, and you were talking about the shortfall, and I was asking what created that or who created it. I was just chipping in.
But let me finish, because you are asking me a question. If I don't finish why we need the money, and you keep on asking different questions,
go ahead.
I'll answer you.
Go ahead.
At least when I finish, then you ask me. So I've told you the shortfall was a result. But we live in this country. Markets were closed down. Cars were not moving. Restaurants were closed down. And you know that even up to now, some government workers, they are running shifts because of COVID, and government is paying them.
Right.
Definitely, private sector had to start about 40,000 people. We lost payee in these areas. Companies were not performing because of COVID. We lost money in the area of corporate tax. These are factuals. Nobody can argue unless you want to do politics. And because of that, government had to rely on debt financing. And our economy was not growing, which was not Kufuor's fault. So that to GDP definitely will go up uncontrollably. And then the same stakeholders were advising us to be careful the way we are borrowing. Our fiscal space is going bad. Deficit will destroy the country. Our effective tax rate as a country has been negative, even without COVID.
Right.
In sub-Saharan Africa, we are one of the countries that we don't collect taxes at all. We are our revenue generation as a percent of GDP against the benchmark, even in the developing economy, between 18% and 20%. In the developed, about 40 or 35%.
Right.
We are around 11. So these things call for tax calibration upwards in our country today. If without it, this country will suffer. Meanwhile, state institutions are still going about asking for new concessions. Why do we doing this to ourselves? Why? And those who are saying we should reduce the taxes, I have nothing against it, but they should back it to detailed work. They should say that if we do it 1%, we are getting $1 billion. Looking at our obligations, our interest payments, our hospital needs, our social needs, our educational needs, $1 billion will take about 70% of the royalties will take. Then we can be convinced.
So just can I come in now? Can I come in now, Doc? Hold on, Roxanne.
Yes, sir.
Good. So I know that the minority has also put forward certain suggestions, proposals, if you like, when it comes to what alternatives you have of shoring up the economy, but not going the electronic way. But I'm going back to the question, do we need to have it at do we need to peg the e-levy at 1.75%? I mean, others have even said that between 0.5% and 1% is okay. Some groups have said that. Do we need it to be at 1.75%?
Boss, do you know why? The first thing I'm saying that you should answer me, that has there been any detailed work from anyone suggesting 1%? For us to understand the fact that 1% will generate X amount of money, and that will be enough consolidating our fiscal space to put this economy in a position that we can solve all our immediate needs, or most of them, even if not all. So can we do that? Two, we are in government. This is the alternative or option that we think it will help this country. Leave us to do it. The NDC said when we pass it, we'll lose elections. So now what they are doing, you don't want MPP to stay in power. No. They know that if we're able to pass this and manage the money prudently, which is the first, I'm expecting Ghanaians to push us to do the right thing with the money and reduce wastage probably in the system. This country will come back quickly out of all the consequences that we are even being confronted because of the COVID.
So just to get it clear, just to get it clear, Doc.
Be better off, and the NDC is afraid of that.
Right. So just to get it clear, Sebe, NDC 4 year. In other words, this whole thing is just diabolical actions from the opposition to ensure that government business doesn't move on. That's it in a nutshell.
That's what they are doing, and they know that.
Okay.
Let me.
All right.
First of all,
right, Doc. So just hold it there. You react to that in a minute. You react to that in 1 minute.
No, you are not being fair to me.
Because I'm going to give you a question to respond to, and that is why.
He said a lot of
hold on.
things. I need to.
Roxanne, I need to moderate this. I'll give you a minute to respond to what he said, and then I want you to tell me about this bit that the Daily Guide newspaper covers this morning when it comes to the e-levy. Apparently, in your 2020 manifesto, page 99.8.7, you had something snuck in there under the fintech proposals, which was going to give us an e-levy-like situation anyway.
We're saying that.
So why is it that at this point in time you're being hypocritical? So quick response to what Doc is saying, and we'll come to this one. That's how we'll wrap the conversation.
First, it is never true that in West Africa, we are the country that doesn't collect tax at all. That's what he said.
I think he was mentioning percentages. He wasn't saying that we don't collect tax.
Why? If he meant so, he would have said so correctly. So we do collect tax. We do collect tax. So he should know that. Two.
In fact, the GRA has just been telling us that last year was their best year.
Exactly. He went on and said that the economy was in tatters, they were paying workers. GRA by its own performance. The figures are here. They exceeded their targets in 2021. Didn't we have COVID? He said corporate tax had dwindled. Where did GRA get the corporate tax from? So sometimes they lie like this just to justify the kind of things they want to do. It's never correct. The figures from GRA shows that they have improved on their tax collection actually during COVID. So the issue is not really about the inability to collect, but it is about the efficiency of the collection system.
Okay. All right. So you've responded.
No, I'm not done. Two. Then he says that disposable income.
We don't have all the time.
No, he says disposable income.
Right.
Who says that the money in my electronic wallet is my disposable income? You see the level of thinking they have. The money in my electronic wallet, which is my capital, which instance I just cited, they are describing it as a disposable income. How is that possible? They simply have a very confused understanding. If if they want to tax the e-economy, the digital economy, they should do so properly. And in respect of some other issues that he spoke about. When John Mahama introduced taxes, he was also looking for revenue.
Right.
But they describe it as a nuisance tax. Was John Mahama going to put the money in his pocket? When he says that they want money, they want revenue to do things, John Mahama, when he brought the taxes that they labeled as nuisance tax, he wasn't looking for revenue. He was looking for profit. So today when he sees, look, Roto that gives us about 90 million. They have waived it off. They say it's peanuts.
About 200,000 a day.
This government says Roto in the millions a year. It says it's peanuts. They don't want it. So when they speak to issues about revenue shortfalls,
point well made, but I don't want you to. We're ending the conversation on this. The e-levy policy, supposedly on page 99 on point 8.7 under the financial inclusion and electronic payments in your 2020 manifesto. You were talking about it. You were talking about promising to migrate and enforce all person-to-government payments into the electronic payments ecosystem and start with migrating all major revenue-generating ventures of government into e-payment platforms. Basically, planning to also, get us into a phase of taxing electronic
payments. This is no argument. The NDC is on record to have taxed e-transaction.
Oh,
yes.
I see.
Well, what did we do? We slap VAT on the fees charged by the banks when they do electronic transaction.
Right.
They labeled it as a nuisance tax. And in 2017, they kicked it off. e-transactions. So when they go and dig this up, they've lost the debate, they've lost the argument, so they are clutching on straws. We have done that. So we said that we're going to expand. How are we going to expand? If you look at some of the transactions, we're going to disaggregate them. Who are the people making profits from e-transactions? You look at it, you tax it appropriately.
Okay.
But you don't tell me that when my old auntie in the village, when I transfer 100 cedis to her to manage the weekend, you want to slap 1.75 on it. The issue really about the e-tax is about the rate.
Okay.
Actually, I have the report of the committee when the bill was considered and brought to the floor. To the extent that the minority is actually proposing a 0.00 rate.
0.00.
Yes.
In other words, you don't want any e-levy.
No, the e-levy can be there. It can be zero rated.
Right.
How so? In fact, I think in Malawi, when they introduced it, it was a 0.2. But because of agitation, they've taken the rate off. So the tax system is there. There's no rated. It's a zero rated tax.
Right.
So we can do that.
Okay. So for you, as far as
and I can read
and this is just yes or no.
And I can read that. I can read that in the report.
You're going to. It's fine. I don't think we need to do that. Well, but as it stands now, you're going to on Tuesday. You're going to reject. All 137 of your members are going to reject the.
It even tells you they are flip.
No, just give me a yes or no. You're going to reject it.
Yes, we'll reject it.
All right.
They said the speaker was the one frustrating them. Today, the speaker is ready. They are not ready.
Dr. Amoah, if you're still with us, Dr. Amoah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
In some 15 seconds, can you give your summary comments as we wrap the conversation? I just want to be fair to you.
What I'm saying is that the NDC brothers, they talk as if they've not been in power before. They rule this country more than any other fraternity. And trust me, it's even what you use the money for.
Right.
Check all performance parameters in this country. Even what we inherited or we took over from them, the parameters, in 2017, January 7th, from the economy to social interventions or redistribution and even infrastructure. Go and compare. About 90%, we are better than them, even with the situation that we find ourselves in.
Okay.
So, all right. Just talk. What we are saying is that...
Thank you, Doc.
I'm landing with it.
Thank you.
What we are saying that the e-levy, if it's passed, is going to really impact this country positively.
Okay. Dr. Amoah, thank you so much. Member of Parliament for Ishiaso, joining the conversation. Very passionate about these matters, but he says we have to stick to the e-levy. Roxanne, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
It's my pleasure.
And today you butchered my surname a lot.
I apologize. I confused you.
Apology accepted.
I confused you with Agboku.
We're still on the big stories. There's a lot more coming your way right after this break. Should time suffice, we'll be delving into the NLC UTAX situation, where the NLC is actually suing UTAX. Stay for that. We'll be right back. Well, we proceed on the big stories as we pit two heavyweights against each other. We've engaged the NLC, the National Labour Commission. They'll be sharing some thoughts on this entire development. Should we get them? It's been a bit difficult interacting with them. But we're going to hear from UTAG, specifically the president of UTAG at the University of Cape Coast. I'm talking about Dr. Bert Bwedi-Kusi. He joins the conversation, and why? The NLC is suing, taking on legally UTAG to compel them to get back to post. But UTAG is also saying, we are not going anywhere. And the 21-day ultimatum, or the 21-day period that statutorily, when it elapses, schools have to shut down, is almost at its end. Where do we go from here? We're joined by Dr. Bert Bwedi-Kusi, as and when we can connect with the National Labour Commission, who would interact with them as well. Dr. Bwedi-Kusi, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, my brother, for having me.
It's always a pleasure having you. Looking at how matters have devolved over the last few weeks and maybe even month, do you feel the sort of engagement from the National Labour Commission has been friendly, or has it been frosty and pushed you away as a group?
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me say that I think we were at the NLC somewhere on the 13th or so. Since then, we have not had any engagement with the National Labour Commission.
Right.
We have only had some, public discourse, some utterances from its chief executive officer, which we hear most often. He speaks for the commission. So apart from that, we have not had any engagement with them. But I must say that generally, our members have not been enthused about the posture which has come in from the NLC, and that was underscored. Not the commissioners. You do not hear the commissioners speak. It is the CEO who speaks for them, and so who speaks for the commission. Generally, members have not been so much enthused about the posturing from the National Labour Commission. But as it were, it's a democratic space, and each one is entitled to put out whatever information it so ought to put out. And so, just to say that, as you have said, has some of these things pushed people away, and I would say that to a large extent, it's contributed to where we are. In as much as the commission may, the CEO and the commissioners, and let me say that, and I always put this up front, that in my public engagements, I don't discuss personalities. So it's unfortunate that I'm narrowing in on that, because I want to draw a distinction between the commissioners who do not speak and then the CEO who speaks for them. But not to take him on. I do not take anything. Whatever he has put out there, he's entitled to it. Just that there are a few of them that we disagree in terms of content, and possibly we may want to go into it later on. But let me say that it's a state institution which we respect, just that we may have different opinions. And so largely some utterances, not only from the NLC, but also from other cortexes, has contributed to where we are. As unfortunate as it is, I think that these are things we can easily overcome. We don't need to, quarrel over it for any reason.
Now, legally speaking, you've been told to get back to work. You've not done that in terms of teaching. There are different dimensions to your work. But in terms of the teaching, the core teaching responsibility, UTAG has not responded. And now you're being sued. You're basically being compelled in a way to go back and do what you're paid to do. How do you react to that?
Thank you very much. Yes, you are right. The NLC ruled that we should go back to work. As leaders, we went to inform our members, and members were of the strong conviction that that could not be complied with. So if you check the communique that came, leaders informed the members that this is what we want. This is what has been the order that has come from the NLC. We are obliged to obey by law. But again, I go back to say that, you see, the same provisions of the labor law, which says that the NLC can give an order and we ought to comply, also made some provision for when there is disagreement, when the party disagrees with the ruling. And I think that is the next step, which indeed legally, which we have heard in Hinton, as you have indicated, that the NLC intends to go back to court to enforce its orders. So we're hoping that we will be able to overcome some of these things. Yes, it's a legal tussle, but some of us really wish that we would not have gone the legal way to be able to get these matters resolved.
And so, in other words, you're going to trigger other legal clauses to ensure that you can continue to stay away because of the fact that there are options available to you, and you're going to trigger them. In other words, you're not going to respond to what the NLC is doing in terms of going back to work. You're going to see through this week still striking. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I cannot say that as we speak. because we have not even had, I'm not sure there is any legal suit from the NLC that has been served on the leadership of UTAG as we speak. I want to go on the tangent that I think that there is room for some intense discussion. Yes, we have been talking, we have been engaging, but I still want to believe that there is room for some high-level discussions to be able to get this challenge resolved. I keep saying that we are leaders because we have been mandated to be able to solve problems. And so if there are problems or there are challenges and we cannot get a headway, then it means that we still need to do more. And so I will not want to say that, well, we're going to go there, that tangent to, because I do not even know what the content of the suit, as it were, may be. And so I'm sure when we get there, the legal people for UTAG probably would look at it, and then we will study it. But of course, I want to believe that we will always want to act in the best interest of our dear nation, of our students. I have always maintained that it is not in our best interest to be on strike. Circumstances have made it so. And so we need to come out of these circumstances and get an amicable resolution within the shortest possible time.
Just to clarify, so you're saying that there's been no service on UTAG in terms of going to court and all of that for the enforcement of the NLC's directive. You've not been served any court summons or anything of the sort in that respect. Nothing has been served on your membership.
Well, yes. So far as I'm concerned, we have not had any service so far as UTAG is concerned. Not as I my check this morning. I don't think that there is any service on the leadership of UTAG.
So at the end of this 21-day period, what it means is schools are going to shut down. Is that something you're looking forward to?
I am looking forward to we getting out of this before the expiration of the 21-day period. But of course, I really do not want to be the one speaking to a shutdown or otherwise, because that is for the management of the various universities to do. But if my eye is on anything, or if the eye of UTAG is on anything, it's for us to get these matters resolved, because again, we have just come from a pandemic. In fact, we are even still within the pandemic, where the academic calendar has been completely distorted. Ordinarily, the first semester should have started from August and ended in September. We are in January, almost entering February, and we have not started the first semester of the current academic year. So it is not in our interest to get the academic calendar distorted again. And so if it's anything, then our eyes will be on making sure that there is a resolution, a quick resolution to these matters. We may have been engaging, but I think that so long as we have not had a fruitful outcome, it's important for us to still engage further and maybe a bit more intense to be able to get the results that we need.
Doc, let me just take your brains as we get ready to sew up this conversation on how some other groups have been reacting. And I'll take some thoughts from today's Daily Graphic, where we hear of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, GTEC, appealing to your members of UTAG to go back to lecture halls while the leadership returns to the negotiating table. And they are calling for this to be premised on the fact that UTAG had to be seen to be respecting the lawful authority of the mediator, the NLC, even if it had any misgivings about it. And I quote here, "As intellectuals, we cannot be seen to be acting with impunity." The Director General, Professor Mohammed Salifu, there. How does that make you feel, this call suggesting that you are acting with impunity?
Yes, I mean, let me say that, yes, I duly respect the views of the Director General of GTEC. He has been one of the key people working to get this resolved. And he makes a valid point that we need to, that appeal that we must get back, respect the views of the NLC and all that. I think that it's valid. As intellectuals, we have every right to obey the instructions of a lawful or a legal state entity. But as I made the point, within that same space, there are also options where people disagree. And so if the space also allows for that, then I do not think that we should be going on the tangent of acting with impunity. I do not think so. In as much as it may be seen as such, that there is some level of impunity that is going on, or some level of disrespect for the rules of engagement or the laws of the state. As I indicated earlier, there is still a space for dissenting opinion, dissenting voices. But appeal, it's important. But you see, sometimes you get a contradiction. Whilst there is an appeal that, look, get back, go and work, there's another agency saying that we are taking you to court. We are going the legal way. There's somebody also saying that there's nothing to negotiate. So the question is that how do you marry all these distortions that are coming in? And so that is where we seem to be in a little bit of a difficulty from the angle of also of the lecturers. And I think that we also need to understand the dynamics of this very industrial action, where the masses, or let me say the very ordinary lecturers, have gotten so much in tune with it and saying that, look, this time the employer ought to do something for us before we get back. And so the appeal is taken in good faith, but within that same, we should also look at it that within that same democratic space, there is room for dissenting voices. And so when there are dissenting voices, we do not go the hard line to talk about acting with impunity and all that. I think that we should continue to dialogue and engage further so that we find a solution to this very challenge that we are in.
So my final bit to you, very briefly, I hope you address it very briefly. We've heard the likes of Professor Jampo suggest that always when these matters arise, the NLC seems to lean towards government. Do you feel in this instance there is some bias there because you are not getting what you want, but the NLC is saying, go back, whether you like it or not? Do you feel you're being treated a bit unfairly in this instance?
Yes, I think that to a large extent, and that has been the worry, that NLC is supposed to be the arbiter. But in almost consistently, in almost all the communications that has come from its CEO, it appears that it's like you go or you face a rat. You go or you face a rat. Initially, it was like, oh, let them report. Let the heads of departments and the vice chancellors report. And the heads of departments are also part of us, and the heads of departments are working. They are post. They are working. They have received the first years. They have received students. They are here. So we have consistently not been so happy with the posture. Because if you are supposed to be an arbiter and we are not getting results, it is possibly your duty to make sure that we get results. Okay. And so if you take that hard line, then we're not helping each other.
Doc, thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. And again, we wish you the best on this enterprise and hope that at some point there can be some agreement between the employer, NLC, and your end, so that poor students as well can get their teaching moving on. But thank you so much and do have a good day.
Thank you, my brother. Same to you.
That is Dr. Bert Bwedi-Kusi, who is president of UTAG at the UCC. Let's just clarify that we have attempted engaging the NLC, albeit on pretty short notice, but we did attempt interacting with the NLC, specifically the Executive Secretary, Honorable Ofosu Asamoah. Unfortunately, they could not join us for the conversation. We always want parity, but this morning we couldn't get them to respond. So maybe in subsequent editions of the AM show or in bulletins to come, we'll try that and see what they have to say in reaction to what UTAG has been telling us. It's been another interesting morning on the AM show, and it's always worth waking up for. My name is Benjamin Akako. Thank you for joining. Do have a good day.